All right. I think we're live. Welcome back, everyone. Onan here. How are you today, sir?
Doing well, thanks.
So, uh, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first. Tell us as little or as much about yourself as you want, and then we'll start talking about kind of the controversy over on Twitter that led to this conversation. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say, I'm Catholic dad of 8, young Catholic dad of 8, married 14 years, and that's kind of, that's the context you can put me in a box for this conversation, which will make sense.
Have you been Catholic all your life?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Since I was
And
like 14.
okay. I meet a lot of, would you consider yourself a traditionalist then, or how would you categorize yourself?
No, I'm a normie. I'm a
Okay.
normie. I am the vestige of the Reform of the Reform crowd. It still exists.
Okay.
If you're into liturgical wars, you'll know what Reform of the Form is. I don't think any Zoomers know what that is, but basically
Okay.
it was Benedict. Benedict pushed back and said, we can make the Novus Ordo better. It's not what it is. We don't need to go back to the TLM. The TLM can inform the Novus Ordo, and it can be a lot better. And that's the path forward. It's a hermeneutic of continuity is what it is. So there's no rupture.
Is that more or less the path that is that kind of what, I guess, the path you've adopted, or is that kind of what's available to you wherever you're at?
No, it's like a life philosophy for sure. That's not
okay.
We drive like half an hour to our parish. So.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so my background,
which is a Novus Ordo that has a Latin Mass at noon. So it's one of those kind
of a Novus Ordo Latin or a TLM.
They will have it's a TLM, but we do not go to the TLM. We go to the English Novus Ordo. But it has, altar rails, no sign of the peace. So it's informed by
the
Latin.
That's basically what we attend, and I'm seeing more and more of that, which gives me, my parents were reverts when I was, I guess in my teens, and then we became trads, and I was a TLM trad for my teenage years, and then I consider myself a recovering traditionalist, so I became a normie in search of what you describe as a reverent, pious Novus Ordo community, and we've been blessed to have a good place now, and we have a Catholic school. Our kids go. There's daily mass. I think is it 2 to 3 days a week, adoration, confessions. So we're very happy there, even though we have TLMs in our neighborhood, and a lot of people we know go there, but we feel like that's where we need to be. We need to have a parish to support and all that.
Yeah. I hope we homeschool our kids, if that makes any difference to anyone. Another piece of information.
We have done that. We have done that in the past when we didn't have a good Catholic school to go to, and I have no problem with that. It could be overwhelming, though. So, yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds like we're not that much different. I guess I'm a little older. I've been married for closer to 25 years, and you've been busy. Anyway, well, you showed up in my Twitter feed probably. I don't remember seeing you in my feed more than, let's say, a month or so ago. Doesn't mean you weren't there, but I don't remember crossing paths with you before then.
I'm just a regular Twitter user. I just read and maybe shit post or comment. I'm the average Catholic Twitter user, whereas you are like a subscribed, channeled professional, I guess.
Oh,
so we're different. You have a hat, okay? You went to the trouble to get a hat embroidered, so you're deeper in it than I am, right? So
yeah, that's been the best thing ever happened to me. Of course, you're talking about the other channel, and I started that. I was probably I was a little older than you when that happened, but I was deeply, deeply overwhelmed and frustrated by the um, trying to live out all of the Catholic rules within the context of marriage in a fairly fertile household. And I found nowhere I could go to really, I guess, have frank discussions with people, whether it was other men, women, priests, whatever.
There was no like scotch and cigar club at your TLM past
Well,
life.
yeah, well, I was past that life, fortunately, and that would not have been much help to me.
No.
I don't have a problem with the trads. I mean, certainly I don't have a problem with the
Yes, you
traditional
do. That's not true. Yes, you do. Come on.
I don't have a problem
That's
with
not
the.
true.
I don't have a problem with the traditionalists in terms of liturgy and all
Yeah.
of that. I do have a problem with the traditionalists when it comes to kind of the moral rigidity and scrupulosity that I think that it induces, that I went through for a long time, still struggle with.
So how can you say that though? Because I mean, you know, they want to clamp down on it because there's a connection between the liturgy and the moral life. And you don't think there's any connection why batshit crazy people are drawn to the TLM? I mean, the church has said like that, perfidious Jews think that this theology informs, their theology and their moral life. And that's why they hate, depends. They can be on a spectrum how much they hate Vatican II, because Vatican II is too broad and it opens up to the world when they shut the door on it and say, we're back to the Alamo. I think it's quite clear there's a connection between, you know, how one prays and how one thinks. So,
So I guess maybe you're a little harder on the trads than I am, maybe.
well, I just wouldn't be naive to say I have no problem with the liturgy. It's just the people and their moral life. I mean, that just shows that you should think about that connection a bit harder. The church has, and that's why she has a problem with how it's spreading like wildfire.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say is I understand and I empathize with where they come from, especially if they're in an area that has, let's say, no access to what you and I would probably both describe as good, reverent Novus Ordo parishes. I've been in those areas, and I remember the first time I went to TLM, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a breath of fresh air. I don't have to worry about what crazy stuff's going to happen in the on the altar. So I still empathize with people, although I think that's been, how long has that been?
I guess my point is like you don't see a connection between the person and the liturgy. Like for you, it's just there's no bridge there.
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at all. I mean, which is why I do. I mean, I do see a problematic association of traditionalists with people that are, I would say, not really in line with what the church currently says or has historically said about morality and things like that. So I'm just thinking like the Timothy Gordons of the world. I mean, those guys. I don't think that's good for the church. I mean, I'm sure
TLM? I don't even know if he's TLM.
I think he was
I'm kind
sure
of a Novus Ordo skater bro that didn't want to bow to Black Lives Matter and then kind of got sucked. I don't know. His path is a little different. I think he's not. I don't know. He's probably not a good example, but I think they just butter his bread. I don't think he's a TLM. I don't think he's a dyed in the wool TLM guy. Like he was from like nowhere, California, and just he got fired over BLM, and then the traditionalist world, because via Taylor Marshall, kind of started paying his bills. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess
I don't think he came by it honestly. Put it that way. Yeah, whereas Taylor Marshall did. He's probably a better example.
Yeah, well, and I suspect with Taylor Marshall, at least, if I sat down and had a beer with that guy, we'd probably get along fine and have.
Now, if you talk about contraception, which is what we need to get to.
Yeah, we'd probably have plenty of stuff in common. Well, okay, well, let's talk about contraception, because just so we're clear, and I've never used contraception. We never will. I've never advocated for people to use it, but I think that um, I think that the objections to the teaching have more merit than I think the church has historically given or considered. And I'm more sympathetic to people that feel the um, need or desire to use that when, let's say, the NFP or other alternatives don't work for them. That's kind of how I would describe myself.
That's not how you describe yourself, though, because, like, you know, that I don't know who that was, that Brendan the Catholic on Twitter said he had a 1, 2, 3 list, like masturbation's inherently evil, contraception's inherently evil, abortion's inherently evil. And you're like, I don't believe 1 and 2 anymore, which is masturbation and contraception, but I do believe number 3. And then I listened to your podcast with that sex therapist, and you're like, well, we hope, we're gonna hope the church changes its teaching on contraception. So although you may say you don't use it, but it sounds like it's because of your wife. It's like, do you actually, it seems like you talk out of both sides of your mouth on the contraception thing. So how can you not believe it's inherently evil, but say like, yeah, this is how I describe myself. I don't use it. I'm with the church on that. So are you with the church on contraception, or do you think, because what you just told me is like, well, I just want to steel man their arguments. That's all I'm doing. There's more to it. That's all. It's a hard life, and I'm steel manning these arguments. Or do you not believe it at all? And like you're like the old boomer waiting for it to change.
No, I don't think it's going to. I actually don't think it's going to change. I don't really. I mean, I would be.
But does that erode your faith in Catholicism and kind of lead to an evolution where you become more like a cafeteria guy? Because that's how a lot of kind of boomers deal with it. Like, oh, we just ignore that, whatever. This is my version of, kind of Midwest Catholicism, and we're going to march on. Forget about it. Just keep marching. This is how we're going to do it.
I think we're all pretty much cafeteria Catholics in some respect. I mean, I think almost everyone is, including the traditionalists, or maybe especially the traditionalists.
So, like, where do you stand on it? Do you believe what the church teaches or not?
On what? On what specifically?
Contraception.
So, I mean, I guess I have intellectual reservations about the teaching. I think that I'm not certain it's even an infallible teaching. I don't know that I'm not saying it's not, but I don't know that it's obvious that it is an infallible teaching. I think it's something that was clearly, let's say, somewhat debatable, however you wanted to use that term, as recently as the last century, because Casti Connubii came out in 1939, I think, or late 30s, and then Humanae Vitae was in 1967, somewhere thereabouts. So, I mean, and neither of those documents in and of themselves, I don't think anyone claims are infallible, nor is the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Now, that doesn't mean the teaching is wrong, but I'm not certain that it's an infallible teaching that couldn't change. That's kind of my position on it. And if it is in fact,
that's a big dissent right there from the norm. So I think I'm not here to argue minutia. You get a track guy for that. You can get annulment proof, who I want to talk about later.
Okay.
You talk about the minutia, that little nitpicky kind of in the weeds thing. That's his shtick. I'm the 30,000 feet above kind of guy, the large picture. So I don't agree with what you just said. Like you can see, even the Orthodox, released, when Humanae Vitae came out, the Patriarch of Constantinople said, this is the perennial Christian teaching. This is right. But beyond that, okay, so you that's already like you dissent. You're like, this could change type thing. This isn't.
I don't think that's a dissent. I mean, I think it acknowledges the fact that not all church teaching is infallible. I mean, I think that's a pretty clear-cut Catholic concept. I think where people can reasonably disagree or is whether it is in fact infallible. I don't believe that it is. That's not me dissenting. That's me honestly assessing the situation as best I can with time and experience and knowledge that I have.
There is nowhere in Catholic You couldn't find a piece of official Catholic literature that says that on contraception. The magisterium has reaffirmed it over and over again, every single pontificate. So I like anyone listening can just open up your favorite AI, type in what is the Catholic Church teaching on contraception? Is it infallible?
No, well, I think
It's
those are two different things. I think it is consistently taught more or
as
less the
infallible.
contraception. I don't know about. I'm honestly not sure that's actually the case, but I'm willing to be corrected.
You
I
have
just don't know.
9 kids and you do not know if this is infallible teaching of the magisterium? Like, that's kind of something you should know. That's like, you
No,
pick out a
it's
car
because
from the
I have.
lot and you're like,
It's
does this have
because
brakes?
it's because I have 9 kids. I don't have time to figure out if it's infallible, and I don't know that me as a layperson could ever
That's
make that
ridiculous.
decision.
You got 2 YouTube channels. You devoted your entire online life to this question, and you're kind of waffling like, I don't know. Like that's crazy. Come
Well,
on.
it's sort of moot though, because I don't think the church is going to change it any time in the near future, even if it is, let's say, fallible and could be changed.
not-
That's not going to happen.
It's not moot because my whole kind of problem with you online is that you attack it. And so if you attack it and you're right, then you're just, and then I should join you. I mean, I should pick up my condom and follow you. But if you're wrong, then this is a huge problem, right?
Could be. I mean, I don't know how else to. I mean,
And you're just leading people. You're just confusing people, and you're scattering where you should be gathering. You know what I mean?
well,
So I think it hinges on this. This is not like some
Okay.
it's moot. This is the crux of the issue. This is what where you're an Episcopalian away from this question. This is what it is, right? I have my friend's Episcopalian priest is like the pre-1935 Book of Common Prayer. Oh my goodness. You want a beautiful liturgy, you become that Episcopalian, in that church. It's gorgeous. So you can have all your fun and your condom because this question is what separates us.
I don't think so. I mean,
They will
would you
even
agree?
pray for the Pope. So you can have it all. It's like this question's pretty vague.
Do you agree that the church in the past has changed teachings that were okay? So the church hasn't changed positions on usury or capital arms, usury or slavery, things like that.
No, she developed it. So I'm a
Okay.
I'm a Newman guy.
Okay, fine. Develop whatever you want to say. There's been a difference of some degree between what the church once taught on some of these issues and what it now teaches, right? I mean, that's development, whatever you want to call it. I know the trads don't like that word, but so
in some things she can.
Yeah, I agree.
We could eat meat on Fridays we can actually. It's kind of ridiculous. I could not watch my favorite TV show on Friday because the Conference of Catholic Bishops has said that's an appropriate penance if you want to eat meat, right? So that's a change. It used to be quote unquote a mortal sin to pray with Protestants. So ecumenical things are in vogue. So I'm not a moron. Things change where they can change, but things develop where they can't.
Yeah, and I would simply put this as possibly in that category as something that could, let's say, develop. That I mean, I'm in the position that it could be in that category.
That annulment guy, he's like NFP's
right
development too far. There's your development right there. Okay, so that's the development. But I want to know. It's like this is just how Christians, people have had sex since the dawn of time. And so why does it become like now, this instance, it's like too much to bear in humanity and we can't take it. We got to throw this out the window. Because that's isn't that your whole shtick? Like, this is too hard. I got to get out there and I got to console my brothers who are masturbating because they don't want more kids, because this is like a crushing burden that the Pharisees put on our shoulders.
Well, I think it has been a crushing burden throughout history. It's just, look at Martin Luther. I mean, that was supposedly the thing that just drove him mad till he eventually left, right? So I don't think the fact that people haven't been out on Twitter until Twitter came around talking about it doesn't mean that these things have not been really impacting people and marriages throughout history. I don't think this is a new issue at all. Contraception and even NFP is certainly a new convention. Hasn't really been around in a, let's say, a reliable way, I would say, for more than about 100 years, maybe a little longer.
The
You know,
intent is old as man. Like, the Egyptians and their condoms, or like you can go back to Israel on the potions. So it's the intent is as old as man.
sure, I get that they've tried. I get why people have tried. We just
And I
didn't have
mean,
an
Onan.
effective
We're
way
going
to
back
do
to
it.
Onan.
Yeah, that guy,
Right?
most understood man in history. So, I mean, I think that,
So, but
yeah,
the point is, like, you think like man should not suffer what other Christians suffering. So, because the whole theology of we go to mass and we look at a dead body hanging off a piece of wood, and the entire thing is built around suffering and what it means, and that's kind of what separates us from a lot of other religions. And so, like, you want to cut that out, and I think it's an ugly theology. I think it's a beautiful theology. Christ suffering out of love for humanity. So that's kind of what I approach on Twitter. Is like, this is an ugly theology. There's no beauty in it. That's why I show my face, show my family. Beautiful family. We're happy. It is a beautiful thing. I want to see, like, you give me the beauty of kind of how you would change things.
so, I mean, I think that,
Because I don't think masturbating on the edge of your bed because your wife doesn't want a new kid, I don't think that's a beautiful life. I think that's kind of like, it's, it's ugly.
do you think it's a beautiful life to live in separate bedrooms for months or years at a time? Do you think that is a beautiful life?
Yes.
How is that more beautiful and beneficial to the family than, let's say, that the other alternative that you just talked about?
So, like, to you, what's the goal of the Christian life? Like, what's the end? What do you yeah, man, it's just too much ground to cover. Because, yeah, you take issue with natural law, and you also take issue with and what's the end? Tell me, what's the end? What are you after as a Catholic? Like, what do you want?
To raise my children to be, happy, holy in this life and in the life to come. Same thing for my wife and spouse, and if possible, my wife and myself, as well as, everyone else. I mean, I think that should be our goal.
Like, that's just like Mormonism, though. You can have kids and be happy.
Well, that's a big picture. I mean, I think and I think, of all the alternatives out there, I think Catholicism offers the best path towards that. But to return to your point on suffering, I mean, I think, do you think that couples that, let's say, have 6 kids and then use contraception, do you think they don't have suffering in their life anymore? Do you think contraception eliminates suffering from their life?
I think it cuts out a salvific suffering. So they're choosing a slow death over a quicker cure. That's what I think. It's
Why
the
do
wrong
you
kind of.
say that?
It's a neurotic suffering. Okay, for me, the end of the Christian life is the beatific vision, and I think all this energy is going to the wrong address. If you're lustful, there's, these are all things. There's a saying, corruption of the best is the worst, and so it's like, the worst people can also be the greatest saints type thing. It's that energy. You want to get rid of that energy. You want to interrogate it and show where is this energy supposed to go. And that's how Saint Ignatius of Loyola, conquistador type guy, breaks his leg and it starts the Jesuits. Same energy, different address. And so Catholicism is all about ordering that energy towards its final goal. And you hate natural law, but fine, natural law. You need a teleology. You always harp on teleology, natural law. I don't understand how you can do coherent spiritual life without it. So me, the beatific vision, you need to see. It's all about see. It's not about more effort. If it was about more effort, everyone would be a saint, especially in this self-optimizing world. It's not about effort. It's about vision. It's about seeing the scales falling from your eyes. Lord, let me see you. Open the eyes of my heart, and then you can do everything. In the end, it's union with God. Augustine calls heaven one God loving himself. It's that union. You don't dissolve the individual, but it gets taken up into God. And so how do you get there? That's why I go back to the cross. It's like, not my will, but your will be done. It's killing that Paul says, the old man, the ego inside yourself. So when you ask, is that good? Two people sleeping? Yes, it is. If he's not masturbating, he's killing that old man, that selfish man. Saint Bernard says, it's just spiritual life is like two things. It's either fear or greed, and the soul can get drawn away by those two things. But you can't even tell a Christian, because he could do wonderful things, but it will never change the supreme object of desire, which is God, and only love does that. So if someone's in the separate bed out of love and is suffering that, I think that's beautiful. Whereas if you're on the edge of your bed masturbating, who do you love then? You're loving yourself, because like, this is just too hard. I can't take it. Yada yada yada. That's just not the Christian life. It's like, well, it's such a grand vision that yes, it requires great suffering, but suffering on this side of heaven will always love. This side of heaven will always produce suffering, because you have to choose something other than yourself. There's just no way around it. To live is to suffer. It's like, but we believe that there's salvation through suffering. It is baked into reality and the spiritual life. There's just zero way around it. It's
So let's talk about our friend annulment proof. So annulment proof is of the opinion that NFP is, so basically couples should only engage in the conjugal act for purposes of procreation. Once they are pregnant, they must abstain. After menopause, they must abstain. What do you think about that approach to it?
I think he's mentally ill and he's been hurt. Do you know anything about this guy? Like I've only
Yeah.
seen him because you interact with him, but
Yeah.
I scrolled through his whole feed, and it's just a pathological obsession with NFP and divorce. And as a 41-year-old man who's been around for a while, it just looks like his wife left him, and
Yeah.
he's mad at God and the church because they didn't protect him, and he's got a huge wound, and he's spending his entire
Yeah.
life screaming from that wound. That's what I don't know, but that's what I gathered,
Well,
because it's crazy.
let's separate the person for a moment. Let's just talk about the philosophy
You
itself.
can't separate the person. This is the truth of what he's saying. He's saying, Daddy, you didn't protect me. Like, the intruder kicked in the door. The bishop, she didn't go to the bishop. That's his big thing, which I totally agree with him, by the way. There was a famous Catholic blogger who Haley Stewart, who got like divorced her husband within like a week after finding out about infidelity, and then just went on the path to annulment like right away. They were together for like 18 years, and which is the speed of it, which just seems, that's the scandal. Not that, maybe there is, grounds for it, but that it happened so fast, should I agree with him. It should, if that's kind of law, it should go to the bishop. The church shouldn't require like you to commit a mortal sin and then it hash out whether that was a mortal sin after the fact, because you need a divorce before you get an annulment. So, which is kind of crazy. So I agree with him on that. If that happened in his life, his wife got a divorce and it took off. That's a huge wound. I would be angry too, but he needs to pray for healing. He doesn't need to spend his entire life on this single question and then just be drawn into poverty and insanity, spiraling. He needs to come to grips with this. It's not a real question. That's why he gets blocked. I look at this thing. Every single person has blocked him. you're spending your time arguing with a mentally ill person, someone who's wounded, and you should be not worried about theoretical questions. You should be pouring balm into his wounds and trying to. This is the Christian mission. You should be trying to heal him, not try to parse out the legality of what he's saying. Like, it's just, he's not the right guy. He's not a real person. You need to like heal him. If this is your you need to, pour some of your married wisdom into heal him. This is the real Christian witness. It's not to hash out, hypotheticals. That's playing his game. He's a wounded man. So,
well, all that notwithstanding, I think his approach, being that, marriage and the conjugal act is primarily for procreation. That was certainly the way that it was articulated in the Catholic moral manuals up until, I would say, certainly by Humani Vitae, but maybe a little bit before that. And I think,
yes, marriage is for procreation. Yes,
okay,
he's right.
But he quotes saints. I think it was Saint Hildegard, different saints who said, sex during pregnancy is a mortal sin. I mean, so I'm just asking about, so if your approach to this is that suffering is good.
Yep.
So let's say everyone adopted that approach. We're going to adopt annulment proofs approach and say, you can get married. The purpose of the conjugal act is to procreate. Once you're pregnant, you need to abstain until you can. Hold on, just let me finish. Let me finish.
No, you're going beyond the church, though. You can just.
I don't think that's true, though. I don't think that's true, though. So what would be wrong with his approach if it actually adds more suffering to marriage, more death of self than, let's say, even NFP? What would be problematic about his approach?
Oh, nothing. You can do, yeah. If that's your shtick between you and your wife, and you want to go that route, yeah, that's open to. It's a private devotion. That's the church is taught. Private revelation, which Hildegard's quote would be under. You do not need to heed. But if you're into like ultra marathons and that's your kind of thing, all right, go for it. But you can't extrapolate that on Twitter for the rest of the world.
Why wouldn't that be better for us?
That's his neurosis. That's his pathology coming out. Don't deal with it. You should know better. You should know the handrails of the church and say, this is it and this isn't. Like, that's out of bounds.
But why allow NFP? NFP removes some of that suffering that would go with that kind of lifestyle. Why would you justify NFP that makes the burden of marriage easier than that would be?
Oh, I think, okay, for that reason, I think it's just baked into I think the truth of NFP should be apparent to anyone who's been Catholic for any amount of time. And anyone who's actually prayed and wrestled with God. It's baked into the rhythm of the universe. We have Lent, and then Sunday is a feast day, right? We have Friday as a day of penance, and then we have Sunday as a feast day. There's always this ebb and flow of penance and feast, just like the seasons. That's why the liturgy is the season: fall, winter, spring. There's growth, death, rebirth. It's a constant cycle. It's actually baked in. So that's like that. You want to abstain for, say, 14 days of a woman's cycle and then resume again. That to me is the heart of Catholicism. That is the rhythm of Christ himself. Are you familiar with kenosis? It's the outpour. The Father gives everything to the Son. The Son feels utter abandonment, and then the Son gives it all back, and he's rejoined. It's look it up. Anyways, listen, kenosis. It's the essence of the Trinity, this outpouring, this circular life, and that's what NFP is, and it's just so apparent to anyone who's actually lived the spiritual life. It's just the rhythm of the universe. Okay. It's the rhythm of God.
Okay. And I don't really take major issue with that, but what I would ask you then is, okay, so what about all of the Catholics and Christians that lived prior to, let's say, the mid 1950s when NFP actually became a thing? What did everyone do before then?
On a practical note, I don't know. They probably...
Oh, come on. What did they do?
Oh, I thought, yeah, are you acting like a technical question? Like, what did the moral manual say? Because I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. So I don't know. That's a
No,
question for
no.
him.
What did Catholics do prior to the advent of NFP if they needed to space children?
I think prior to, they probably just, well, I don't know. Because
You haven't thought
it
about that?
depends
I
who,
mean,
no, I've thought about it. So if they're like, I don't know, if they were like a first century, you know, Ethiopian convert, I think they would probably have a Josephite marriage. If they were an 18th century Irish Catholic, they would probably let it rip, and then
mhm.
child mortality take care of the rest. So I think that question, that question is probably changed a lot throughout history, depending on their spirituality. If you're a drunk Irishman, you're going to knock up your wife ad infinitum. Or if you're
And you think
you
that's
know
a
a
good thing?
if you're a third century Christian, you're probably more in line with a Josephite marriage and shedding your earthly shell. So I think it changes with how you understand the spiritual life.
Well, I think
No,
but just look at it though. Look at it though. You're saying, and I have all you said about NFP. I mean, I think NFP has a lot of really positive things. It's one of the reasons we've continued to use it. Okay, but I I don't think you can say I don't think you can use the words to describe NFP the way you have and ignore the fact that what did the church hide the ball? Did God hide the ball from us until the mid 1900s? I mean, that made no sense to me. The because you're right. Before
abstinence.
then,
But NFP only teaches abstinence, and no, the ball's never been in. That's always been the ball. They
okay,
only know the NFP is just, that's just, especially like you had that sex therapist on or whatever her name was. She used are you familiar with Mira? She said that she uses Mira and she called it exorbitantly expensive. It's expensive, so not exorbitantly expensive. Are you familiar with what she's using?
yes, yep.
So that thing is just, the Chinese made it, and it's probably sending all our data to China, so they have like the Western, but it is dialed in. So it's been like you can. It's never been easier to do NFP with that machine than it is now, and it's actually a detriment to the point where I actually think it's harmful.
It's becoming too reliable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I think, it's like anything, like metrics, right? It gives you so many numbers that you could just have too much control.
So
But anyways, we're getting into the weeds. What was
no, I don't think so. I think this is
you
the
had a
heart
big
of the issue. This
no,
is the
zoom
heart.
out. What were you were saying? You were talking about, oh yeah, what did the Christians have before? Abstinence. They always had
Okay.
abstinence. Same thing we have. So we have the same tools that a first century peasant had. So nothing's changed.
Oh, okay. Well, abstaining 2 weeks for NFP is a little different than abstaining for 6 months or 3 years because otherwise you're going to get pregnant. I mean, those are totally different things.
Well, what did you do before you got married? What does every like fat incel have to do? This is solidarity too. It's like, think about all these Gen Zs. They have these new terms like hypergamy and things like that. These females, they're not 6 feet tall and earning $300,000, so they're not getting chosen. These are horny kids that are getting passed over because they're growing up in a sexless culture. And I'm sorry, they're Catholic. What options do they have? Same thing we've always had, abstinence, and that's not going to change. So
Do you,
you
do
can't
you
say, what are you going to tell your son? You know what, just go look up your favorite porn site, and then that'll kind of take the edge off until you get married. Is that the advice you'd give to your son?
no? Do you think
Exactly.
no?
What
But
advice would you give him?
well, let me walk you back if
You
you let.
you were going to
let
say, struggle with God until the sun rises, like Jacob. That's what
do
you're
you
going to tell him.
do you want my answer or not? You're going to let me answer what I think is the answer or not?
Go ahead.
So I think there is a fundamental difference between. Well, let me ask you this question first of all. I assume you agree the fact that it's a bad idea, if not a near occasion of sin, for you to move in with your fiance before marriage, even if you plan to remain celibate. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Why? Why is that a bad idea?
Well, it'd be a sin. It'd be the sin of scandal and the sin against prudence.
Why would it be imprudent to live in the same house with your fiance, even if you're not planning to have sex?
Because you're horny and you're fallen.
Okay.
And like you said, near
aren't you
occasion.
horny and aren't you horny and fallen even if you're not living in the same house together?
Exactly. Well, that's why you put guardrails up, and one of those guardrails is not sleeping together under the same roof.
Exactly. Exactly. And that is the difference
Yeah.
between abstinence before you're married and abstinence once you're married. Because it is not the same thing to ask the single guy to be, to be totally abstain however long it takes to get married than it is to ask the married guy who's living in the same house and probably continuing to share the same bed, breathe the same air, have your wife in the house. Perhaps maybe she's changing, getting out of the shower, all those things. Not to mention the fact that you have a
Sorry,
very,
I don't follow your analogy. You gotta. Sorry, like I'm 5. Walk me through this.
yeah.
I don't see how this is analogous at all.
I think it's very analogous because the it is day and night different, remaining, let's say, completely celibate for even two weeks or whatever as a married person living in the same house with your spouse as it is before you were married, living, let's say, by yourself, or even whether you were dating or not. Those are two different things. So that's why you can't treat abstinence or celibacy in marriage as if it's exactly the same thing as celibacy before you're married, or if, let's say, you're a celibate. They're different things for that reason. And the church recognizes that. Otherwise, the church wouldn't tell us don't move in together before you're married. It recognizes that there is a fundamental difference in the environment that you're living in if you're living in, under the same roof with the person that you are sexually attracted to.
Okay, so walk me through this.
I just did.
But it doesn't make any sense. So why is it not okay to accept abstinence from a married couple?
I'm not saying it's not okay. I'm just saying that it is not as simple. The task is not as simple abstaining while you're married. No, I disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah.
So an incel who has no hope on the horizon, and you, where it's like, okay, I just have to wait out 14 days. That's harder than him.
I don't know about you. I was a virgin before I got married. I was almost 24.
Just feel like what's harder? Like you're saying that it's harder for the married couple. I'm saying it's a lot. It's a bazillion times easier. I feel bad for these guys. Like they have got no hope on the horizon. Like that's why they're, you see an incel shooting up or something. They're angry at the universe. This is the Jordan Peterson thing. It's like the ultimate nihilism. They're just robbed of all hope.
I think I'm not even talking about those guys. I'm just talking about my own, our normal journey. You're a man, or you're a man, boy, grow up, become a man. You start dating. I mean, most of us are in our 20s, let's say, or maybe later when you get married.
My point was, say there's a Catholic kid out there he has no hope on the horizon. Say he's like 500 pounds, his teeth are all crooked. It's like no girl's gonna want to touch him with a 10-foot pole. He has to abstain for his entire life, let's say, for this thought experience. Whereas all you have to do is abstain for 2 weeks. I'm saying his life is really hard, and that's gonna take a saintly, like that's a crucible he's getting formed in, and not to be desired and accepted. And the temptation is he's gonna extrapolate that onto God. God doesn't want me. God doesn't love me, because he hasn't had the same thing with gays, Catholic gay. So my point is NFP is in solidarity with all this suffering. Whereas if you want to shortcut that and say, we can just we just have our cake and eat it too. I'm saying that severs a huge tie in the Christian body through this teaching. And I think that's totally wrong. And I don't get your analogy how that's, I just don't understand. I think it's a poor analogy, and, explain it to me another way. Explain it. I need you to explain how that married couple abstaining for 2 weeks is harder than my 300-pound uggo.
Well, do you think all of the celibate priests have the same experience as that guy?
Yes. Yeah. I think
So-
that's why we're in an absolute crisis right now. That's why, yeah.
Do you support? Would you support married priests then?
I do support married priests.
Holy cow! Okay, all right. Now we're talking.
No. But no. You need to first deal with this bow. Do you tie this bow for me? Because I do not understand how you could suffer more than this guy.
I didn't say I did. I'm not comparing myself to him. I'm comparing myself.
But he suffers more. He suffers more. He sees no light at the end tunnel. This is my argument. You do.
Well, I think he is. I think those guys are suffering. Those guys are suffering in a different way. Okay, and I haven't really thought about that issue. I mean, I think that those guys perhaps are suffering unnecessarily as well, but it's not my.
They're horny.
Not my state
like they can't. Like you are saying, like, oh, you're on the edge of your bed, you can't do your work. This guy has that for his entire life.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, because when I was a single guy, I was a healthy, normal sexually healthy guy. I never was stuck on the edge of my bed, not able to sleep at night before I got married. That was never a problem for me.
So marriage just lit the fuse, and now it's like you're just a firecracker. It's just like pop, 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 pop. You need the.
It changes something. I think it changes you in a biological and psychological way. Yes, I do think that's true. I'm not the same guy I was before I was married. I'm just not.
You shouldn't be, otherwise you're doing something wrong. But you're going in the opposite direction, so that's weird.
I don't know.
You're saying you went from not horny to more horny. As I'm a St. Paul kind of guy. If you're on fire, get married. It's where you get healed from that fire, not the opposite. It's not where you start the fire. But you're telling me you were fine.
What about marriage, according to St. Paul, quenches those fires?
Sex.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So, if you could have sex in marriage, that absolutely is a cure. But when you can't, it is not. It makes it worse.
Yeah, but my point is it's always temporary.
What is temporary?
The no sex, those apps. You're saying like you're treating those NFP as if it's like. Sorry, I got my sleeves is getting cold.
That's okay.
It's temporary. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying. Is there bitching and moaning like NFP is castration, but it's not. 14 days, even 21 days, like that's nothing compared to a gay Catholic who prays illicit touch 24/7.
Let me ask you this, and just because, do you personally use NFP?
Of course I do.
Okay, I mean, how regularly do you have to use NFP?
My entire married life. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you said you've had kids pretty close together.
Oh yeah,
right?
if you don't like NFP, then you can. Yeah, right. Like right now, we felt we were always open, and we're like, we're having a good time. And then number 7 came. We're like, okay, we might be done. So it's probably like now where we're like, we have to be on the charting.
Okay.
So
right.
Seven was our kind of our okay. This we might be seeing that.
Okay. So
we're gonna let the sheets cool.
All right. So of your 14 years of marriage, how many of those years were you basically whatever happens?
I don't know. That's the one for my wife. Um,
I mean, 10 years, 12 years?
we still are, whatever happened. I mean, it's a
Oh,
disposition, so
okay.
we still are. Yeah,
Oh,
that I don't think
so
that'll ever end. That can never end. It's, like Benedict says, it's not our job to put limits on the cosmos. Whatever the Christian, it's you always have to be. Yeah, you should cultivate holy indifference, which means you need to not be latched on to what you want. You need to be open to the Holy Spirit, because if He calls and you're too latched on, you're holding something, and He can't direct you where you want to be. So you're asking me, how long have you been a Christian? That's what I hear in that question. I'm gonna say like forever. Like that's that interior disposition that we cultivate all the time.
are
Always,
you
always open.
all right? So, well, those can mean very different things because people using NFP still have to be open to life, right? That's different
Well,
than
my
not
my
using
wife went to the
anything.
ER and she was hemorrhaging, and the doctor was just shoving her full of gauze. And he's like, "Is there a chance you could be pregnant?" He's like, and before she passed out from blood loss, she's like, "I'm Catholic. There's always a chance."
Right. But
So there you go. Is that a dramatic answer to your question?
well, no, I mean, I don't mean to be flippant about it, but like, if you are, you seem to be dodging around this question. So let me just ask in a little more direct way. In the last, let's say 3 months, have you and your spouse had to abstain for, let's say, 14 days or more because of NFP?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're using NFP and trying to avoid, and so you've had periods of 14 days or more of straight abstinence because of NFP.
I don't know if it's 40 days, but yeah, we have seen.
Well, what's the normal time period you have to abstain during the fertile
Yeah.
time to avoid getting pregnant?
It's about 7 before, and then a cycle. So you call it 14.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, call it 14. Like, the 7 days before, then you've got the cycle, and then you're good again.
So 14 days straight abstinence, and that doesn't cause you any difficulty from a male perspective. Any sexual tension buildup doesn't interfere with your sleep or anything like that.
It doesn't interfere with my sleep. I think the buildup is great. I think it's beautiful. I think that's a good thing. So I don't see why that's a pain in the ass. I mean, I like it.
Doesn't
It's
it?
like Lent, it's like Easter feels so much gooder when you've had, that's what I'm saying. It's a rhythm of life, and it feels good.
Okay.
I
Does it
don't know
ever
why
interfere with your sleep?
no.
Okay. Well, I mean, I assume you have a bunch of kids to take care of. You work. I mean, if it interfered with your sleep, would that be a harder cross than you're currently carrying?
Of course, my kids interfere with my sleep, though. My kids are the biggest interference
All
with my
right.
sleep.
Right. Correct. Well, you have that plus this. I mean, here's my point here. As dads to large families, we both have large families. It's not
And
as
it's a
if.
beautiful and good thing.
Sure, I've never said it's not. Okay, I've never said it's not. And anyone that wants this life, God bless you, because it is and can be a really good life. What I have a problem with is basically more or less forcing people into this life if they're not truly on board with it. That's what I have a problem with. I don't think, because this is a challenge. I mean, there are a lot of crosses. It's a blessed cross, but being responsible for this many mouths, going to work, basically giving up most of your own personal hobbies and things like that is part of what we do as men to care for our families, right? That's what we do. It doesn't mean you're complaining. It's just an acknowledgement of a part of the sacrifice you make, right? Correct?
So you just want an option, like you want an off ramp, so those people who would like to be Catholic and would like to be married, but do not want kids. Don't want
No.
a lot of kids. Like what's
I think people should be able to have the right number of kids that is right for them in their season of life. And for everyone, that's going to be a little different.
The church agrees. That's why she's provided NFP. So I don't see I don't,
Yeah,
what's the
but
problem?
NFP
NFP is just
doesn't.
too hard.
But for some couples, it is. For some couples, it's not 14 days. It is months and months and months.
You're talking like perimenopause or something? Because like a normal
No,
cycle would not be months and months. Then you need to go to a doctor. Something's wrong.
no. I have people that reach out to me all the time that have been in that situation. Or let's say, alternatively, I'm not they're in a situation where pregnancy would in fact be a grave life-threatening matter for the wife. All right. NFP, I would not trust NFP, even though we're pretty good at it now, to that if my wife was in that situation. So you have people that have lots of reasons why, getting pregnant, needs to be is justifiable and need a reliable way to avoid that. And NFP
Like
for most people
like
isn't
more
that.
reliable than abstinence. You're looking for
More reliable than NFP, right?
which is abstinence. So what's
I mean,
more reliable than abstinence?
Nothing. But
exactly. So the church gives the best option. So why are you holding her in contempt?
Well, because none of us wants to live totally absent with our spouses, because we understand that comes at a significant price to our marriage as well.
There we go. So there's the point. It's too much, too hard.
Well,
right. That's the issue. It's too hard.
I think it's unreasonably hard for a lot of reasons. Maybe the biggest is that once you have kids, your kids need you at your best or as close to your best as much as possible. And they need mom and dad having a loving, affectionate relationship. And if mom and dad are living like roommates or they're fighting or whatever because of it, kids pick up on that. And that's why I think there is an enormous cost to the marriage and children in situations where the couple has to be in prolonged abstinence. I think there is a cost there that is not just an inconvenience to the couple. I think it is fun. I think it is a significant hazard to the well-being of those children, both on a just a pure physical, emotional level as well as spiritual. That's the problem with just saying, well, just be abstinent. Well, that's not a realistic solution. I'm sorry, it's not.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. The church can't do anything for you. It's
sure she could. The church could bind to loose anything.
No, Jesus on the cross with the two thieves on either side. One was bitching and moaning. You could, if you're the Savior, take us off this cross right now. Come on, just say it. And the other one, what did the other one do? I'm a sinful man. I trust in you. And he said, this day you'll be in heaven. This isn't some random part of the gospel. This is the bifurcation of life. You have two options. There's two roads. And you're telling me you are the other thief. Like, this is too hard. You get off. Come on. You can do this. You can bind and lose. You literally just said that, whatever you want. I'm saying the church can't do it. She teaches the true path of the spiritual life. And yes, it's hard. Yes, you're gonna die. Yes, it could be insane, but she can't change that. She can't turn like Christ to the cross and say, all right, angels come down, get us off, yada, yada, yada. Benedict says that's the crowd calling for Barabbas, which, you're not going to get Barabbas. It's not going to happen. She literally cannot do it because she's charged with telling the truth of the spiritual life. So that's all I can say to that. It's like, yeah, I agree. It could be insanely hard, but to anyone out there listening, take, Saint Mark, Tiang Jiang Ping or whatever, the Chinese martyr. He was a Chinese doctor. He got addicted to heroin, to opium. He had some ailment. He started treating himself with it. And so he pretty much became a crack addict. And his confessor refused to absolve him for 30 years because they don't understand addiction. You just say you're a crackhead and you're going to come back to it. So he lived 30 years without communion, and he died a martyr in the Boxer Rebellion. But he chose to be martyred last Why? Because he wanted to encourage all the others to accept their fate and become martyrs. That, my friend, is the spiritual life. That's insane. And that's so whoever's your life is a gospel. If it's make it a gospel, like St. Mark did. That guy didn't bitch and moan. He said, I want to go last because I want to encourage people. And that's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be saying like, oh, let's go to onanism. You should be out there. Yeah, it's hard encouraging people. This is St. Paul, it's the epistles, all it is. It's encourage, encourage, encourage. And I just see you casting shade. And I just, where does it come from? It comes from hardship, but there's nothing salvific in hardship. Only when it's related to the cross does it become salvific. And that was kind of my original point on Twitter. Like, this is ugly. This is just darkness. This is just shade for shade's sake. And that's why it's like this minutia of annulment proof. I'm just totally not interested in that. You got to look at like, what are you directed at? You're directed at the cross and at the beatific vision. So you need to see this problem with different eyes. It's about vision. It's not about technique, or, we're all going to suffer, and it's whether the suffering flows you to God or not. So.
My approach is not totally different than that, but there's one, I think, significant caveat. The problem that I have, and the reason why I talk about this stuff, isn't that I disagree with that in concept. I think if the church wanted to say, if you want to reach the highest virtue in your marriage, here's how you do it. Use NFP, or maybe you totally abstain when you're not open to children. And for those that can take that, great. And did we lose you?
Oh, no, sorry.
You can still hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say the church said, this is the highest way, and there are dangers, let's say, with contraception and things like that, which I totally agree with. Okay. So if it was approached kind of like martyrdom, right? If you say this is like a martyrdom, if you will, of your marriage. Okay. Yeah. I have no problem with that. And I would wholeheartedly endorse that. The problem isn't that's not where it stops, because it says, if you cannot carry this heavy cross, it's not simply that you're not reaching that highest level of virtue. You are every time you fall short, it's a mortal sin, and you are going to go to hell if you die with that on your conscience. That is the problem. No. Yes, that's all of the sexual sins are grave matter and mortal sins and done. This is the problem.
Like 8th grade theology class.
No. This is not this is the crux of the problem. The church,
every time a guy wanks, he's going to hell.
Ask the trans. I mean, are you saying that's not true? Are you saying that's not true?
It's not true.
Is it not a grave matter? You don't have a problem with that?
I have a huge problem, but I am Catholic, so I take the church. Okay. Grave matter. Yes, that's one criterion for mortal sin, but there's a few others, right? You need 3 all at once for that to be the quote unquote spiritual death that you're talking about. Not even to hell. Church doesn't even say that. Nowhere. You cannot cite me anything that says, she pronounces no one in a state of mortal sin. That's why St. Joan of Arc, that famous thing, they were trying to get her to say that she was in a state of grace, but she refuses it. If I'm not, I pray that I am. She got around it. The church has always said it does not know the state of the soul of anyone. So this is just traditional Catholicism. So you're throwing out heresy right there. So yeah, I'm rejecting it as an Orthodox Catholic, because that's heretical. If so, you need grave matter. You have to do it with full knowledge and with full intent. Which one of those 3 do you think is mitigated right off the bat? It's probably intent.
In what situation? Why? You don't think you're intending to do that when you do it?
No, of course, the most aren't, and the force of habit, is already it expunges subjective culpability. That's in every single moral man. I could show you Dominicans in the 1930s who say as much. So this. It's like there's just no way. There's no way. Yes, it is objectively a mortal sin, but that you want to say like it's subjectively a mortal sin every single time, you go so far past the church teaching that it's just not even funny. It's just that isn't it. So
So let me ask you
I'm
this.
sorry, I'm orthodox on that. This is just standard boilerplate moral Catholic theology.
So let me ask you this then. So let's say you got a
And
married guy.
you always intertwine NFP with hell, and that is weird. And I think that's kind of your pathology. You like, this is why you've got your channel all on onanism and NFP and hell, and this annulment guy. You're both like working out your wounds in the public sphere, and it's weird. Like that's a weird thing to constantly go back to hell and NFP. Like those are those are weird bedmates. Like that's weird.
I don't think so at all, because so what would you tell?
You're
So
working out from some like old fear, like you thought you were going to hell and you had to do this. Like that's sad.
I mean, being afraid of hell if you engage in something that's grave matter should concern most Catholics. I don't know how you can be. I don't know how you would not be concerned about that.
It's it's the fear of a slave, and that's just not what God calls you to. And, I a priest from the now suppressed religious order Miles Christi, and he said it great. Hell is like the car, it's the tire, the spare tire on your car. The thought of hell, you only use it when you really need it. So yeah, if you're spinning off the rails and you need to contemplate, the fear of hell, but you're probably already living hell then. And so God's probably put that in your life as a living hell. So I don't think the average person needs to contemplate perdition at all. St. Peter Amar said, when you come to God, when you pray to God, don't come to him with your humility. He doesn't want that. He come to him with your love. If you spend 15, 20 minutes saying, oh, sorry, I did this, but you spent 15, 20 minutes praying about yourself and all your sins. He says, instead, come to God, think about how much he's loving you concretely, how much he loves Craig and what he's given you, this, that. And then you will have fed on Christ, because Christ is love. That's what you should feed on. Don't come to him with your humility. Save that. That's, you want to feed on God. Feed on his love, not on that's a perversion to constantly have that on your forefront of your mind, especially with NFP. That's ridiculous. You should be doing it out of a positive thing, not a negative. That's fear that binds the slave. We're not slaves. We're set free.
Well, I can only speak from my own experience, and my own experience has been, let's say, when we've been in periods of NFP, and it gets to be, let's say, 2 weeks in, the biggest moral hazard for our marriage is for me to engage in that, right? And if it happens, I think most men in my situation, like me, would feel the need to go to confession before going to communion. Is that the approach that you would take?
100%. You always have to. Yes.
Why? But if it's not a mortal sin, why would you need to go to confession first?
You always have. It is a mortal sin. I'm talking about subjective. Subjective. If you're culpable subjectively, that's when you can say you're going to hell. And that's only the person can say that. The church only says what actions can lead to spiritual death. It doesn't say that someone is in that state. She never pronounces on the state of the soul, and only you can do that.
Right, which is why I think most men err on the side of caution and go to confession. It's always objective.
Right? No, because it's always an objectively mortal sin. So you should always take it to confession. But you were concerned with the subjective culpability, which I said is a totally different question. Yes, it's an objective mortal sin, and you always have to go to confession for mortal sins. Objective or subjective, doesn't matter.
No, that's actually not how it works. So it's objectively grave matter. So, but it's not mortal sin, even if you engage in grave matter, unless you have the knowledge and consent, right? Full knowledge, full consent. Those,
It's always an objective moral sin.
no, it's objective grave matter, but it's not a mortal sin unless and until you have full knowledge and consent. That's what the church teaches. So all I'm saying is that,
No, that's not what she teaches.
yeah, that is, you have to go to confession if you engage in a mortal sin, which has grave matter, knowledge, and consent. All three of those. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
okay, sure.
You don't have
but
to go to confession.
Masturbation is always a mortal sin.
No, it's always grave matter. It's not a mortal sin all the time. It's not a mortal sin unless you do it with full knowledge and consent, according to the church. That's what it says.
That's subject. Those are the subjective things, but it's objectively, it's disordered and inherently evil. It is always a mortal sin.
Okay. So, and if a man should die with that mortal sin before going to confession, he should expect to go to hell. Is that right?
Church doesn't say that. You've already gone past it, but you can. It leads to spiritual death. That's all she teaches.
I was raised that if you die with a single mortal sin on your soul, you have deserved hell. Is that not correct?
Yes,
that's my honest understanding.
Correct. But the point of the judgment is that it's up to Christ to judge that. And that's where she remains silent.
That's not helpful.
That's not helpful? That's the existential crisis everyone lives in.
That's why guys become scrupulous. That's why people become neurotic and scrupulous, like annulment proof.
And that's why they need sane people to help them. That's why I'm saying you're unhelpful. And if you think you're sane, you need to help people. That's my point. So if you think he's scrupulous and mentally ill, you should probably help him and not argue over 1920s moral manuals. It's just, you argue with a fool and two fools argue. That's why he's been blocked by like every legitimate outlet.
No,
he needs a psychiatrist, not a.
Maybe we all do. I've been blocked by most of the same people as well. So maybe we are both fools, and you're the only sane person in this conversation. I don't know, but the fact of the matter is, the reason why I constantly talk about this within the context of NFP is because I think for most healthy men, if you're in a marriage and you're using NFP, the most likely moral issue you have to deal with is going to be masturbation. Doesn't mean everyone does it, but that is going to be the first step that most men are going to fall into with abstinence of any kind. Now, and for a lot of men, myself included, who is, I would say, recovering trad, that's a real ongoing, constant moral concern, because now it feels like my soul is constantly in jeopardy because of
There's your problem.
this.
Yeah, you don't trust God enough. Solomon says the righteous man falls down 7 times, but he gets up and he's closer to God. That's St. Paul said, I wish this was taken from me, but God is. These wounds are here so that we draw close to God, that the soul yearns for God, and that's the way it should be seen. You should take the wound and stay close to cleave to God. The soul should cleave to God. That's the only Catholic response. Not to think I'm going to hell and I gotta change my lifestyle. To people, you want to wave away hell, and it's always going to be there. That's not the appropriate response to say, like, okay, well, this isn't a sin. I think that's where we diverge.
I can't understand where you're coming from, because on the one hand, you're saying it's always.
Can I read you a quote?
But you're saying it's not something to worry about. Like, I just don't know how to square those two circles.
Okay, this is St. John Henry Newman. I'm going to read a quote to you. You tell me what you think. We have much to be forgiven. Nay, we have the more to be forgiven, the more we attempt. The higher our aims, the greater our risks. They who venture much with their talents gain much. And in the end, they hear the words, well done, good and faithful servant. but they seem to do nothing but fail. They cannot believe that they are making any progress. And though they do, yet surely they have much to be forgiven in all their services. They are like David, men of blood. They fight the good fight of faith, but are polluted with the contest. That's the spiritual life. Bloodied, polluted. You think you're constantly failing. That's it. That's what I'm saying. That's how the soul draws to God. This is the spiritual life. Not to say like, oh, I'm bloodied. We got to find a different arena. It's like, no, stay in the arena. Stay close to God.
The problem is the arena is, for me at least, and I know for a lot of people, actively bringing them further from God or
That's what you think. You think you're constantly failing. You're not. That's you're not.
Well, I think a lot of people in that situation would understandably feel like this is a hopeless situation because of what they understand the church says about marriage, contraception, masturbation, all that. I would disagree with you that the church in the catechism, the 1993 catechism has section 2352. That represents a pretty significant departure from what I've been able to see and how
I
it's
don't
been
know what
treated
it is.
historically.
I'm not sitting in front of a computer. So what is this that you brought up?
Section 2352 of the catechism is the section on masturbation.
Okay. What do you want to talk about? Why are you bringing that up? What does it say?
I'm bringing it up because I think you more or less correctly describe how it approaches masturbation from the stand. If it's a force of habit, has a section in there that says there can be no culpability at all in some situations. That has existed, I think, since 1993. I have found nothing prior to that had that sort of, let's say, pastoral consideration built into it. I believe all past moral manuals either didn't talk about it or were talked in much more severe terms. There was no, well, if it's a habit, it's not a mortal sin. I don't think that's the way it's historically been treated. That's a fairly modern convention.
I mean, I have like Dominican writings from the 30s that say as much, but
if you can send those to me, I would definitely like to look at it. Yeah.
If it's not. Oh, it's anyways, all that to say, okay. But that's why I brought up St. Mark. Like, you can still be, the church says you're damned and denies you everything. But if you really understand the spiritual life, you're gonna end up, it's not gonna matter. Right?
What's not gonna matter?
Like the guy, he was denied. He thought he was in he thought he was going to hell. Like, didn't he? He got denied. He got denied absolution for 30 years in communion and got martyred and went last in the martyrdom to encourage people. So that I'm bringing him up because that's the way I want you to see it. Even if you think you're damned, the love of God should go to the bitter end and say, you will show me the gates of hell because I'm coming after you no matter what. The soul should love God and constantly go after him. You should just push the thought of hell aside. Don't even think about that. You only think of God's love for you. And that's what you go towards. That's the goal. And that's what you should encourage people. Just keep headed towards the light. If there's any thoughts, and those are from the enemy, you push those aside. And the negativity says, unworthy, you push those aside. That's not it. Keep going. And the church has given this saint as a blueprint for that. Even against her institutionally, she could be, say, if you're in like some SXPX and saying you're going to hell, the church has at least given you this saint to say the opposite.
I've been in plenty of confessions. Priests has more or less told me I was going to hell if I did that again. I mean, I don't think I'm making something up. I think
exactly.
This is
well. Thank God we have a centralized church, and we're not the Orthodox. So you don't need to take. There's so many clowns, and that's why the magisterium is a beautiful thing, because you don't need to rely on your spiritual father like you do in the Orthodox Church. That's why you can.
And this
that's
is why
the nice thing. You can proof text them.
Well, and the reason
why Rome is nice.
Well, okay, but one of the reasons that I continue to talk about these things is because I see a lack of uniformity. I see, both from my experience and hearing from other people who go to confession to a priest and get
I agree.
very different advice, right?
Yeah.
I think there is enough uncertainty out there, and I know there are good people whose spiritual life is shattered because they're in this situation. I'm not saying it's justified, but I think it's understandable and predictable with what I think is a lack of clarity out there on these things, or at least. And so that's the reason I continue to talk about these things, because I want the priest who is hearing the man's confession and putting him at great, moral scrupulosity. I want him to understand what that man's life is actually like, and why he, let's say, fell into that, and why he's going to confession, not to justify the man's behavior, but to provide context. Because I don't think most priests, for example, are really aware of what the actual context is and the struggles that the people have in their marriage, and why these kinds of sins. Because, like, I think you even said it, like, well, if you're married, it shouldn't happen. Well, no, I think it happens more often for most guys in marriage because of these things. Not to say it's okay, but if priests don't understand that, they're not going to be in a position to give what I think is actually helpful advice, similar to what you've been saying in the confessional. That's why I talk about these things.
But you talk about it to say, like, this is a bad teaching, and that the church should change on it. I don't think the church should change on it. I think it can't change, and it shouldn't change. Well, it would be a disservice.
Whether it can change and shouldn't change, I think, are different matters. I mean, I think if it could, I would not have a problem with the church changing these positions a little bit, because I don't think it would lead to all of the, let's see, sort of dire predictions that Paul VI made, or whoever, people like to make about it. I think you could absolutely relax some of these things, not even going full blown contraception, but recognize that for couples that are using NFP or whatever, if one spouse does one of these things, or they do it together, that may actually be their cross in life, because if they could have their choice, they would come together, but they can't, right? And so I would say I would be more open, or more interested in the church recognizing that as, in fact, the natural law way that couples do these things. I don't think there's anything natural about saying you need to live like cousins with your spouse for indefinite periods of time, when you do have other alternatives, perfectly healthy, natural alternatives.
Well, I don't know. You can still. Do you kiss your cousin? It's not fully cousin. Come on.
I mean, I'm not sharing a bed with my cousin. I'm not. I mean, so, like, I just. It's not. But that's, you know what I mean, right? I mean, I just, like, if you have to. So that's where I think the real. This is the part that I think can really make or break a marriage. How the couple, and for my situation, this has been a much harder burden to carry than my wife, and I think that's true for a lot of marriages, not all, but a lot of marriages. And so I think that I think that it because if the man finds himself in this sort of cycle, if you will, of trying to, we're not using contraception, we've got to abstain, but also trying to never once, fall into these other things. I think it's going
I think your whole thing is not NFP. I think it's masturbation. I think Uncharted Man and this. I think your whole feed is, like you said. I think it's just a Luther kind of neurosis, or about masturbation. I think you should stop talking about NFP. You should just start talking about that. Should be your thing, kind of like Matt Fradd. What do you think about Matt Fradd, by the way? He said he started masturbating at 6 years old. I can share the podcast episode. He talks to, like, this this therapist from my city. That's quite the cross. And so that's kind of his thing. What do you think about? He's kind of made a career out of that.
Well, but
what do you think the answers he gives?
I think his advice to men to basically, follow what the church says is not really helpful, because his wife has a hysterectomy and they don't have to abstain anymore if they don't want to. So,
Yeah,
I
but he
think
started at 6 years old. He had an early start, so that should count
I
for the
did.
hysterectomy.
I didn't have any issues until I got married.
Well,
I'm an
but my
anomaly in that
point
weird
is,
way.
point is, give him some slack. He's although he's had the hysterectomy, he had a much earlier start than most. So you don't think that gives him any street cred?
No, because I think what I see in many ways, and I see St. Augustine as a prime example, is I see people who, whether before they were Catholic or while they're Catholic, but they were just like kind of almost full blown hedonists in their own mind, really overcompensating when they kind of come back, and they do not want any sort of, they want very strict, rigid rules that I've got to follow, because if you give me an inch, I'll take a mile. I think Matt Fradd, and I think there's some of these other prominent Catholic influencers who I see that kind of that pendulum effect where they have just gone completely extreme in the opposite direction. That I can't relate to that, because I've always been kind of swinging in the middle a little bit, right? I mean, I'm not a perfect guy, but I haven't really had these extremes. But I think a lot of folks, and I think St. Augustine's the prime example of that, is someone who just goes so extreme to the other way because they have that history that I don't have. I don't have that history.
Yeah. So he kind of helps like young men. He's got his 28 day. He does all these books and programs. You don't think that's? I don't think that's the pendulum in the wrong way. I think, isn't that the pendulum in the good way?
I mean, I would encourage every man to try to avoid that, and if you have that habit, to stop it before you're married. I would approach it more from a psychological and, let's say, kind of a health standpoint than threatening hell all the time, because that's what we do as Catholics. Don't do it because it's a sin. It's a grave sin, right? So I don't disagree with the outcome necessarily, but it depends on what the rationale is for it, because I think yes, I think it's a real problem for this, especially younger generation, with access to so much of this stuff on phones. When I was a kid, you had to find a dirty magazine somewhere, right? So it's a real problem, but I think it needs to be treated more as a social health issue than a moral issue, even though it has moral implications.
What does that look like a health issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would say, you want to have some self-control. You want to, if you're doing that, you can, especially if you're into porn, that can really harm, damage your brain, rewire it. You can have significant, I think it absolutely would have significant potential impacts on a future relationship and your ability to have a normal, healthy relationship with your spouse. I think that would be the most obvious basis to try to
have a big family. Just let it rip in that case.
Well, if you can, great, but not everyone can, right? And that's just, and I think it's becoming more and more difficult depending on where you live. People don't have aunts and uncles and grandparents nearby to raise children for you, help you with that. Grip it and rip it is just not a realistic approach for most people, or shouldn't be expected they can do that.
No, and that's why I think abstinence is so important, because it's perennial and it's universal. Everyone's in the same boat across every single time period, every gender, sex, orientation, like everything.
Sure, abstinence. I would agree. Everyone. I would agree with you if we were talking about true total abstinence and not NFP, which is a very modern thing.
Yeah, I know. I spin our wheels on this more, but I think total abstinence is way harder when you're not married.
See, I disagree. So I would be surprised if you sat down with your wife and you guys say, well, here's our options, honey. We can do NFP or we can do total abstinence. I would be surprised if both of you be like, yeah, I think total abstinence would be the best thing for our marriage. I would be shocked if you would actually believe that. I would think you would say, no, I think NFP is better for our marriage, because we can have
intimacy. Yeah, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah,
No, but
I
I'm
agree with
saying
you
that.
there.
Okay, right. So that's why I don't think that's why I don't compare total abstinence, which is required for,
I
say,
meant for like a single
unmarried
person.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I don't compare. But for married people, that's why I don't think saying, well, just you be happy you have NFP, because in the old days they didn't have anything. They had to be totally abstinent. Well, yeah. But there's a reason why no one wants to do that, because it's not healthy for most marriages, right? It is healthy for a single person. It's not healthy for most marriages to live like that.
Yeah, I think it's healthier to have kids and let them come.
Well, even if you have your kids, I don't think it's necessarily, you get to be 50 years old, you're done having kids. I don't think it means it's healthy for your marriage to like go the rest of your marriage without being physically intimate. I don't think I don't think most people would say that either.
Yeah.
It's good for your marriage to have that intimacy, right?
Yeah. I think it's just, I guess I could agree with Mr. Annulment Proof that NFP has taken on a contraceptive mentality where people want the least amount of kids possible, not the most.
Do you honestly know anyone that's used NFP their whole marriage and has, let's say, 2 kids? I have never met a single person. Yeah.
No, not 2, but 4. I think 4's too. Four is too few.
Well, it depends how old you are when you get married.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, someone who's got like 4, kind of begs the question. Yeah, that's, wow, good for them. So if they can do that with abstinence, then good for them. But when I see them, they've got 4 kids and they're not particularly, let's say, temperate, then it does beg questions, right? So yeah, the virtue of temperance should increase in your use of NFP, and if it isn't, then yeah, where are you cutting corners?
Well, I'm just saying, you got a couple, let's say they live in a big city, metro, New York, Los Angeles, whatever, and they have 4 kids. I mean, that's going to take an enormous amount of sacrifice and whatever for them to be able to support those kids. And I
live in one of the most expensive areas of the world. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I'm just saying I would not have a problem with someone who lives in one of those places saying 4 kids is what we can afford and using.
Yeah, no, that's not.
I'm just saying most people, I don't think most people would then use NFP for, let's say, 10, 20 years until their childbearing years are over. I think most people would eventually resort to something else.
Really?
Yeah. I just don't think there's many Catholics that follow that track. Most Catholics I know do one of 2 things.
Why wouldn't they do NFP for 10?
Because it's too difficult. They think it's too difficult, unreliable for them, whatever.
What if it is reliable? I know 2 that they're like been stuck on 4 for quite a while. What do you think of those guys?
No, I think it's reliable if you're okay with 2 weeks straight of abstinence every month. But I think for most people, for most guys, it's going to have significant other impacts on their physical and moral life that
I just find it
with.
so hard to believe that. When you say that out loud, I'm saying like that's totally reasonable. 2 weeks is super reasonable, but you think it's so unreasonable that you created 2 YouTube accounts and a Twitter account dedicated to the unreasonableness of that 2 weeks of abstinence, and that's what I'm trying to hone in on, and I don't understand. But you're just saying it's crazy.
I think for the vast majority of men, I'm not saying every man. Maybe you're a little different. I think for the vast majority of men, that presents the greatest hardship in their life, and I would put myself in that category.
And I'm saying that's a beautiful hardship, and that hardship's going to exist no matter what. Like, there's only one option for the Christian, and it's martyrdom. There's no way out of it. Whether it's red or white martyrdom, you have to die a martyr. You got to kill the self. And
again, I don't have a problem with the concept that you can, if you want to be a martyr, be a martyr. But I don't think
you have
martyrdom,
to be a martyr.
No, we don't.
Yes.
Not most of us are
Yes.
not martyrs. You know,
Everyone
martyrdom.
must be a martyr.
Martyrdom means that when you die, you go straight to heaven. You are blessed. You bypass purgatory. When we're talking about if you don't meet that, you not only are you not going to heaven, you could potentially be going to hell, because these are all grave matters. This is the problem. I know he keeps coming back to hell, but I don't think you can realistically be like, oh, don't worry about hell. That's not how any of this works. I think if you're, at all conservative in your approach about it. So that's why
you were talking about the end of martyrdom. Just to interject, that's the end of martyrdom. I know you don't like teleology, but you kind of, if you want to be rational, you need teleology. So the end of martyrdom is heaven. But every Christian must die a martyr, which is you must kill your own will so that you do Christ's will. That's what a martyr is. And whether it's physical or spiritually, every single Christian must do that. And I can quote saints that say the exact same thing.
I agree with that.
This as martyrdom. So you have to. There's no way around that.
Sure.
And I think the church has given you a beautiful martyrdom in marriage. 2 weeks, I look at my wife's legs and then I say a little prayer. Thank you, Lord, that this is my purgatory. This is the most beautiful way to become a saint. And when it gets hard, I tell my wife that. I was like, look at our children. It's like, yeah, this is insane, but this is necessary and it's beautiful. This is the most beautiful path to union with Christ. And I'm going to take it 10 times out of 10. And one medieval called, Christ jumps on his cross like a groom on his wedding night on his bride. That's how much, and that's kind of how I feel. It's like this, if this is how I'm going to go down, this is how my ego is going to die. I'm jumping on it. I love it. That 2 weeks is beautiful. I wouldn't give it up. And the church gives that to people. I think I think it's so beautiful and merciful. And you're saying it's not, and it's like a huge burden, and it's ugly, and you're going to go to hell. I don't see it that way, and I don't know how you've construed, this beautiful thing as this ugly thing that leads to hell constantly. And I think it's.
I would no. What I would say is this. I agree with you that marriage is going to be a cross and requires it to be a death to self. I just think you seem to have the belief that someone, let's say that goes into marriage, has children, and then let's say at some point uses contraception, that there's not a cross there. I disagree. I think anytime you have children, you are dying to a significant part of yourself. And yes, that is a beautiful cross. Almost every person I know that uses contraception has children. Okay. There is a cross. There is a death to self. Likewise, I think of a couple that's using NFP, but let's say they resort to other things, they are still carrying their cross. So this is the problem. It's not whether you have a cross. You will. Married life, especially if you have children, is a death to self. Okay, that does.
Correct.
Okay, I'm with you there. I'm just saying that doesn't mean that every cross that you would impose on a marriage is good because of that. And this is where you and I agree that I would not impose on married couples as a moral obligation to follow annulment proof, because I think that would be a cross. Absolutely would be a cross, but I think that would be an unreasonable cross for most couples. And I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of, I think that there are other things, such as the rules around NFP and the other things that go with it, that present what I think is an unreasonably high cross, is all I'm saying. Not that shouldn't be a cross, but I think it can present an unreasonably high cross that becomes damaging to the marriage. It provides more damage to the marriage and the family than it provides good. That's all I'm saying. And we can agree to disagree about that, but I just want to make that point that we need to get over this idea that couples that say aren't following your approach to a T. It's not as if they don't have suffering in their life, or death to self, or life. People lose jobs, people get cancer, children, and like all those things are part of the married life that come for you, and you have to be ready to take those and as you said, offer those up as a sacrifice to God. Those are going to come for every couple, I think, at some point in your
Yeah,
life. And,
of
and,
course.
and this is, and so my only feeling is that the one thing that I think gives couples the strongest strength to face those challenges, those crosses when they come up, death to self, is that
Yeah.
physical intimacy that you have with each other. And anything that tears that apart unnecessarily is a problem for me, because that's now the couple is less and less capable of handling all of those different challenges and sacrifices that life presents you. That's my only position on that.
So I agree with you that suffering's going to come whether you use NFP or contraception.
Yes.
But my point is, not all suffering is salvific, and not all suffering is addressed, to heaven. Yeah, that's that's what I'm saying. It's like you can't choose. Once you choose sin, you are choosing a slow death.
Uh,
Not that's what you're choosing. The suffering that you have while adhering to church teaching is choosing a quicker cure. You're both going to suffer, but they lead to different things.
Sure, but I think that still begs the. I mean, I would just take the position that the only reason, let's say, contraception would be damaging to every marriage is only because it's said to be a sin. I don't think that, like, I think the church could just as easily have said it's not a sin in every situation. It could be it's treated like alcohol. It's got to, based on the circumstances. I think the church could have absolutely come with that, had adopted that approach, and it would still be, an opportunity for sacrifice for people. I don't think that would tip over the apple cart, if you will. I think it would be, that's the problem. I think people treat like, well, no, if we did that, we'd have all these horrible things that happen. I don't think so. I mean, I think, I think we have created a lot of these boogeymans to justify a teaching that I think a lot of people, if, from their own mind, just don't find as reasonable and isn't compatible with natural law.
Natural law. And so I'm going to read you a quote from Carl Jung, who I don't like, but this quote is apt. He says, people do not realize just how much they are putting at risk when they don't accept what life presents them, the questions and the tasks that life sets them, when they resolve to spare themselves the pain and suffering they owe to their nature. And this, in our context, we say the nature of marriage. In doing so, they refuse to pay life's dues, and for this very reason, life then often leads them astray. If we don't accept our own destiny, a different kind of suffering takes its place. And this is what I mean. This is of the contraception. A different kind of suffering takes place. A neurosis develops. And I believe that life, which we have to live, is not as bad as a neurosis. If I have to suffer, then let it be from reality. A neurosis is a much greater curse. In general, a neurosis is a replacement or an invasion, an unconscious desire to cheat life, to avoid something. One cannot do more than live what reality is. And this is the Catholic teaching. The reality of marriage is procreation. And anytime you want to dodge that, you're going to end up with suffering that is neurotic. And what do we mean by neurosis? It is you turn the camera and it's pointed at you. This is main character syndrome. It's me, 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 me. Whereas procreation is beautiful because it kills the self. It starts from below, it starts in your nuts, but it ends in heaven. And it's the movement of God, eros, up to agape. This is why cathedrals are, the old ones are built in a long, narrow, and it points your eyes up to the stained glass. The material life leads to heaven. It's the natural movement this is the whole goal of the incarnation, is to take the human and turn it into God. God became man so that man could become God. And anytime you want to shortcut that, you will suffer, but it's not going to be the right kind of suffering. It's going to be a neurosis. CF, annulment proof, CF, Craig Onan. You guys are neurotic about two different poles of the question. And I'm screaming here saying none of this is Catholic. Essentially Catholic. You're talking about Catholic things, but wrong address. You guys are getting to the wrong address. So I think you cannot avoid suffering. I think the church has given us this suffering to lead to the correct goal, and this is why natural law is important. And you're right, natural law is based off God. It's based on faith. So I would not make a natural law argument to a pagan. David Bentley Hart has, in the 2013 article on First Things that says as much, and I totally agree with him. So you can read that one. It's called like Nature's Ought or whatever. But natural law is absolutely essential for Christians because our actions are all geared towards a goal. And the minute you throw that out, then everything is nihilistic and it makes no sense. It devolves into neurosis.
Yeah, not to get. I'm going to have to wrap it up here shortly, but I just want to clarify where I stand on the natural law thing. I mean, I think we more or less agree, but my position is that I'm not saying natural law is not helpful or isn't a useful tool, but I don't like the way that it gets employed, because the way it gets employed is the way I believe it's been employed is Christians, Catholics adopted it after we're already Catholic. Already we have these systems of belief. We have these moral values, principles, whatever, and then say, well, okay, if God designed the universe, that must all be imprinted in nature. And so if we go look at nature, we should see symmetry between what the laws of nature say and what we already know to be true through divine revelation or whatever. And so that's not
natural law.
But I think that is. So then what they say is, okay, so now we can see, all right, we know that contraception is wrong. We already believe that. We know that because the Pope said it or whatever. Now let's go look at natural law. See how natural law supports that. The problem is you're reading natural law to that conclusion that you already have, not, I don't know what God thinks about contraception. Let's go look at nature and do natural law. Wherever the chips fall, we'll follow that. That's not how it went. But at the same time, when Humanae Vitae, Casti Connubii, a lot of that, when they talk about contraception, they always rely heavily on natural law and say, yeah, you can, because of natural law, we believe these things. It's not, it's the reverse is true. That's the problem I have with natural law. Not that there isn't natural law and it's not a useful tool. I don't like when it's used in that way. And then, oh, by the way, if you don't ascribe to these natural law things, it is also, now it's a grave matter. Now we're getting back into the moral things, and your eternal salvation is in jeopardy if you don't follow these. I don't like how natural law has been sort of forced into that position, because I don't think it supports that ultimate conclusion.
We'll table that whole thing.
Sure, fine. I just had to get that off my chest.
Yeah. I just did another rabbit hole. So yeah, I mean, we can wrap up. So we're back on 2 hours.
Yeah. No, I appreciate. I mean, I'm grateful and appreciative that you agreed to have this discussion. Generally speaking, when someone takes offense at what I say, they block me, and fine, that's their right. I'm very, very reluctant to block people. You have to be pretty offensive and threatening or whatever before I'm going to do that. And so I think this was a perfectly good, respectful conversation between people that agree on a lot of things and disagree on some things. And I wish there was more of this. I think this is how dialogue should happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why, I don't like, you attract a lot of people who are just like burnt out and jaded, and are they outright atheists or like maybe 9/10 of the way there. And I think those guys need help, not an echo chamber.
That could be, but I will say, and I do attract a lot of people that I think are in my situation, maybe a little earlier in life, in their marriage, and they're at a point where I was 5-10 years ago, completely.
Bring them on. Then we could talk about it. I mean, I don't see those guys on your feed. I see the.
Well, Yeah, those people, have better sense than I do, and they don't talk about it publicly. And so what they do is they email me, or they're in my Discord community. We have a huge Discord community. Maybe it's not huge. We have a large Discord community of people that come out of the woodwork and say, "Thank you for sharing these things." I'm not doing that to like puff myself up. I'm just telling you, I think I'm very glad that you are, very at peace and happy in your situation. And I'm much more at happy and at peace in my situation now than I was 10 years ago. Right. And so I want to help other people who have, let's say,
Find that peace.
find that peace. Right. And
What if that peace is accessible for everyone, regardless? That's kind of, the good news of the gospel is like, Christ, peace be with you. As
I agree. I think it should be.
To you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is achievable. I think I've been blessed enough to kind of get to that a little bit. Doesn't mean I'm so. A lot of times when I talk about, I personally, I don't really worry as much about hell. I once did. But I know there are a lot of people that still do directly. This is why I talk about these things, not because this is all my own personal. This is where I'm at right now. I'm trying to shoulder the burdens that I know other people have that, maybe aren't in a position where they go out and just talk about it on Twitter like I do.
All right. Well, to those guys, I would offer up, the Stabat Mater Dolorosa. It's the Virgin Mary under the cross. And she stood, and traditionally, it's she stood. She wasn't, she wasn't bent over in two from her grief. So that's kind of the hope of the Christians, that you can stand up while you suffer because of the hope that is in the cross. So if you're getting bowled over and bent in two from your suffering, you just think of Mary standing, and that is the posture of every single Christian. That's why we call Christ the mediator between us and the Father. You can stand up, and he is the judge, and he's the most merciful judge there possibly is. Whatever you think, you should just meditate on.
Mm-hmm.
God is the most merciful judge that one can think of. That's the posture of the Christian. You just push all that other stuff out because it's not from God.
Yeah.
If you love God, you don't have to worry about anything.
I agree, and that's been a lot of how I've been able to develop a reasonable amount of peace in the last few years, because I've tried very hard to adopt that, and
I don't know what else is the good news. What's the good news? That
I agree.
You're clever enough, or you subscribe to the right YouTube channel, you might get saved. Like, come on.
No, I agree.
And I will also say the part is like when God wanted to live outside of himself, it was in a family. It was it's a beautiful and the most fundamental thing. And so I think you should trust the church more than you should be wary. There's healing. There's healing there.
Amen. All right.
Amen.
Well, thanks, you.
Greg.
Thank you. I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for coming on. And maybe if you're up to it, we'll do it again sometime. Otherwise, I'll see you over on Twitter. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely up for it. Enjoy your plum pies or whatever you're going to make with all the plums.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Yep. Bye.